wanted to share some of the success that we have collectively had in 2018 with apologies to Charles Dick, as I can really tell you that it was the best of times in 2018, and it really was the toughest of times for the university. We achieved some amazing milestones. We also faced some challenges that called for some deep courage or some deep compassion among all of us and each of us, every member of the CSU family. So let me start with a summary of some of the good news. We made real progress in closing the equity gap. The graduation rate gap between our underserved students and their peers decreased by nearly 2 percentage points. And it's worth noting that the equity gaps themselves were much smaller than they had ever been before, while enrolling more students who come from the underserved communities, typically of color and usually of low income. So when you put those together, yes. When you put those together, this is not a check-in-the-box goal for the California State University. This is a moral imperative for us, is to close those gaps. And we're making progress, and some campuses have zero, and I know we will get there as long as we continue to summon the will. Closing the gap always has been and always will be a top priority of mine, and also for the CSU, because it reflects my personal commitment to this goal, but also because it reflects the DNA and the basic, as you were saying, the heart of the California State University. And as it turns out, good fortune, or a lot of work, somewhere in between, these efforts that we have about closing that gap align remarkably well with our new governor's agenda to break the cycle of poverty in California. Now, Gavin Newsom and we both agree that a degree from the California State University allows folks to become self-actualizing, engaged and productive members of society environmentally, socially, and economically. What a wonderful confluence of values and of agendas. In 2018, we successfully convinced and influenced the legislators that the CSU is the key, not one key, but the key to California's future. We did that with significant assistance and colleagues and students across the CSU, throughout the university. The wise stakeholders, the unwise ones weren't invited tonight. The wise ones in our united advocacy, focusing on the recognition that we are good stewards of public and private dollars, and that a dollar invested in us turns a remarkable investment in the here and now, but a much longer investment across the lifetime of our alumni. 3.6 living alumni, 97% live in the state of California. Think about that. 97% live, work, and prosper here. So now those comments sound correct. They sound appropriate. But another way to say it is basically we kicked ass in 2018. Now, I've already met with Governor Newsom several times and members of his executive team, and as you undoubtedly heard last week, I am pleased and really emboldened by the level of attention higher education is receiving in his first budget proposal released just last week on Thursday. He demonstrated a strong commitment to us and to reinvesting in the CSU. Let us be clear. The proposal that he made is the single largest investment in the 60-plus year history of the California State University. And it will enable us, if adopted, to continue to do remarkable things for the people of California. CSU is clearly key to our future in this great state, and there's no better investment than the one that he has proposed for the CSU. Now, to be clear also, that if you listen to his budget speech last week, that if you are the beneficiary of an investment, you better darn well produce. We have to show a return on these net new dollars in terms of our students' ability to succeed and achieve their degrees in a timely fashion. We're up to that, but let's not lose track of that very important fact. We also saw a remarkable success this last year with our grad initiative. The rates for our first-time freshmen increased 6 percentage points. And two-year graduation rates for those who came in from community college, which is about half of our students, went up by 7 percentage points. I mean, this is stunning. This is really stunning. And it's important to note that this is the response of our faculty and our staff to create and innovate, by our administrators to invest, by our taking intentionality, the idea that students should be successful and succeed and earn their degree and then go on to whatever's next for them. And we couldn't do that without our 400 and almost 90,000 students answering the call, the challenge of our faculty and staff. So we should never lose sight, however, of these numbers and then recognize that there are faces behind every one of these numbers. This last fall, I had a chance to go to Dominguez Hills with the new president, Thomas Parham, and I volunteered to help students move into the residence halls. Now, that was a dumbass idea because students bring a lot of heavy stuff. And when I met Melissa and her mom from San Diego, Melissa had a lot of heavy stuff, and I got the microwave to go up the stairs of buildings that were built for the '64 Olympics. But when I sat down with Melissa, her mom doesn't speak much English. She's an immigrant kid. She's first in her family. And she chose to go to Dominguez Hills to get away from San Diego. But she wanted a challenge of a new environment. And she wanted to prosper intellectually, academically, and socially. And her mom, who sat on the couch speaking precious few words of English, was beaming with pride and shaking in trepidation with the notion that her young baby was now going away to college, fulfilling a dream that she could hardly even have imagined in her youth. So eager and excited, it's the Melissas of the world and so many others that remind me that we are creating remarkable opportunities for progress here at the CSU, and we're preparing literally hundreds of thousands of Californians for successful careers, but really creating leaders and leadership that will bring new vision and strength to California as we take on the challenges of the future. In simplest terms, it reminds me that we're doing really good things at the CSU. 125,290 students earned their degrees from us last year. That is an all-time high. When I started, it was less than 100,000. We added 4,300 new class sections, which translates to 90,000 seats, butts in seats in courses. All 23 campuses were among the top in the nation, recognized by third parties for empowering social mobility, upward social mobility, ascent. For the first time in history, over 50% of our campuses are led by women. The national average is less than 30%. We're 52%. 17 of our campuses were listed as best colleges in America by Forbes, and Money Magazine listed 12 of our campuses to the nation's top 50 public colleges and universities. That's one half of our campuses. Our alumni are achieving a remarkable success In Forbes' annual nationally 30 under 30, 9 CSU alumni were ranked in the nation's 30 under 30. That's a third of the country's. Also, our alumni were in the shortlist for Times Magazine Person of the Year, selected to pilot SpaceX commercial spacecraft, to receive a Pulitzer Prize and an Emmy, to be a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and many other business and entertainment and cultural awards. I want to conclude this list of accomplishments by acknowledging the support of our friends and donors, whom are many in the audience this evening. The generous individuals provided well over $300 million for facilities, for faculty support, for student scholarships, for public service programs, and for other university priorities that make us who we are. Look, funds from the legislature are critical for our operations and for our infrastructure, as are the tuition dollars that we do receive. But it is the philanthropy of our alumni and our friends in the business community that creates those margins of excellence on our campuses, and for that I want to say thank you. But it also the fact that so many more people are now providing donations to the CSU than in its 60-year history tells me that the story we're telling, the impact we're having, is becoming more widely understood, more widely appreciated, and that is on us then to continue that cycle up. Now, with all the good news in 2018, we certainly had our fair share of tragedies. When you think about that, it affected our colleagues and our students and their families, and I've spoken about these before. I don't want to belabor them or be a downer tonight, but you know, it's remiss not to stop and think about that shooting in Thousand Oaks. You may not know this, but Channel Islands, our smallest campus, well, except for Maritime, had 48 students in the room when the shooting occurred. None were killed, several were hurt, and several students at Channel Islands were heroes because they pushed people away, put tables over them, and took care of them in the height of a tragic, yet another shooting. Let alone the firestorms in the north that have consumed the homes of our students and our faculty and our staff, particularly at Chico this year, but Sonoma State last year. But of great pride is the way in which the entire CSU system and like colleagues on other campuses, as the flames were still licking up in the fires, were driving themselves to the campus to provide safety and security and counseling and all of the things these campuses have needed. Last November, I spoke at the trustees meeting a bit about our CSU family, to make the notion that compassion really should be a higher order, fundamental part of our lives at the university and in the life of the California State University. I wanted us to think about us as California's compassionate state university. And I'm humbled that so many have taken this message to heart and had some fun with it, but have redoubled their efforts to look out for each other, to look out for those in the community, look out for our students in ways that we perhaps otherwise wouldn't be doing, and share their talents and treasures to help those who are in such difficult measures. So when I look at 2018, I do get a sense of pride for all of us. We've achieved lots. We rose to the occasion. We overcame the challenges. We made no mistake. We made no mistake. Well, we made a few mistakes. But make no mistake that many people came together with intentionality to make this all happen. And you in this room this evening, including our partners, are a big part of that effort. And it's that effort that wants to be recognized and acknowledged. I don't know if you had a chance to listen or read Gavin Newsom's inaugural speech, but as you might imagine, I was there and I was paying attention, and close attention. And I was impressed by how closely his remarks, which I didn't write, align with our mission, which I believe so deeply in. His recent budget proposal gives me great hope that the CSU will be given endorsement and the ability to support and expand our effort to educate California in the years ahead, welcoming more students to campus for a more enriched experience, getting them out sooner rather than later, and enhancing our ability to make them successful and aid their launch into graduate programs or into their careers. Let me never lose track of why we're here. We are here to educate Californians of all walks of life who have the ability and willingness to do the work. We should be measured on who we include, not who we exclude. We should be judged by who we graduate, not by those who try and don't get out. So let's redouble our efforts on getting our students to that degree. We should focus all of our efforts on ensuring student achievement, and with achievement comes success, to prepare them intellectually, emotionally, to become transformative leaders of where they are today, just like we heard about our students at San Diego earlier, but across all of our campuses. Now, graduation rates, as I mentioned, equity gaps, additional courses, all of that stuff has been happening. But the numbers shouldn't be the only way in which we define student success. We are here for the students. Students are ever changing, always evolving, fascinating group of people, most of them, all of them. But they happen to be our seed corn, and they're seed corn of our collective future, let alone theirs. They reflect the diversity and breadth of California itself, urban to rural, surf to the Sierras, native-born and immigrant like I am, wealthy and less well-to-do. They come from every corner of our state, if our state had corners, and they seek an education that will forever change their lives and the lives of their families. We have a bold responsibility to help them shape a bright future. We must work with our governor and our legislature to continue to work on increasing these enrollment opportunities and the resources it takes to run this marvelous university. We must help our faculty to discover and implement innovative ways to approach our students in the classroom, in the studio, and in the laboratories, in the research fields. We must encourage our students to take advantage of all of this stuff that's in front of them, to join campus clubs, to be engaged, particularly when they're first in their family or come from low income, don't have anywhere to know exactly what to expect of a university. And we must enable our staff to be innovative and creative in ways that ultimately help our students succeed. Our charge is to prepare students to become remarkable citizens, educated and informed, compassionate and courageous, more than ever before, not only in the state of California, but in the nation that is having its fair share of divisive conversations. Individuals capable of critical thinking, of thoughtful actions, willing to ask hard questions, and then listen respectfully to answers, even if you don't like the answer. Remarkable people then are also needed in our businesses and industries, in our organizations and places of worship, in our government and in our schools. Preparing students to graduate on time is important, but preparing them for a lifetime of service and success is even more so. Now, I'm mindful of your role in that preparation. You provide job opportunities to students. You help them with working in food services, residential housing, student unions, recreation centers, labs, etc. You prepare them for the jobs and careers that they may have never considered or even knew existed before. You open doors by opening minds. You, in this room, open doors that open minds. You teach them responsibility, integrity, the soft skills of working in a workplace, and we know that giving jobs on campus help our students succeed because they are part of a community and they go to class more often and they succeed at a much higher rate. Your connection to students can even be more tangible. Think about those of you, the vendors here, who have printers that produce beautiful ways to communicate, to attract students to our campus or to a major within our campus. The food service folks who notify students of unused food so they can help get a bite to eat on their way to their next chemistry exam. The technology vendors that connect students to campus resources, the organizations that provide opportunities to work on federally funded assuming the government's open, federally funded sponsored research projects with our world-class faculty, and I could cite many more examples. But your efforts, seriously now, plant the seeds of leadership, of compassion, of service, of engagement and action, and don't lose track of how important that is. These opportunities are as important as all the stuff they get in the classroom and the laboratories, every bit as important to the student's success. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for that. So ultimately, you are helping us prepare the next generation of leaders. And that too is essential to our purpose. And as I close, let me share one interesting example. Like many of you, I'm a child of the 60s. I remember how campuses then were often cauldrons of intense conversations, demonstrations, and debates. Some saw that as detrimental back in the day, but in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, those campus clashes often served as the cradle in which leadership was born and nurtured. In 1967, campus protests at San Francisco State, and Bruce was a student at Acalanes High School, also in the East Bay, and I was a student at Pleasant Hill High School, also in the East Bay. That 67 protest led into that historic strike in 1968, and a young African-American woman found the courage to speak up, to demand change, to become a leader, but she also became the first of the students that was arrested. But their combined actions eventually led to the creation of the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco, and that alone would be a noteworthy accomplishment, but Ramona Tasco was far from finished. After graduating from San Francisco State, she went on to earn a medical degree at UC San Francisco, a Master of Public Administration from the University of San Francisco, and a divinity degree from Berkeley's Graduate Theological Union. In the years since, Dr. Tasco has worked as an internal medicine specialist in Oakland. She's led medical missions to Kenya, Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, India, Sri Lanka, and Haiti, and remains a vibrant, committed member of her community. And when she was introduced by President Wong at last year's commencement speech, Les said that she fought to make our university more broad-minded and inclusive while she was a student here. And she's gone on to make the world a better place as a physician and spiritual leader, and that is exactly true. But I'm sure there's many who saw the protests of the 60s and the protests since the 60s as so much noise, full of sound and fury, and not much substance, signifying nothing, as Shakespeare might say. But history suggests otherwise. Courageous individuals found their voices, and in the process, changed society. And indeed, continue to change society today. I'm pleased to let you know that Dr. Tasco, that vigorous student protester of the 60s, has just graciously accepted our invitation to be on the advisory committee that chooses the next president of San Francisco State. How cool is that? She demanded change 60 years ago, and now she gets her chance not to screw it up. But we need more courageous voices like Ramona's. Cal State campuses must and can remain places where the search for truth and knowledge is never ending, but always coupled with a quest for wisdom and compassion, where leaders can be mentored and encouraged, and where the future of California and our nation can be fostered, formed, and blossoms. In his inaugural speech, Gavin identified the unique role that California holds. And I quote now, "The country is watching us, the world is waiting on us, and the future depends on us." He took my lines for tonight because I could say the same thing about the California State University. The future depends on us. The future depends on us. The good news is we're well positioned and we're ready to move forward with renewed strength and boldness. The even better news is that now is the time to make that effort. We are discovering our abilities to innovate and change and to prosper, to admit mistakes when we make them, to learn from them, and to go forward. We are able to inspire and to create. Our mission always has been to lead, to be in the forefront, to blaze a trail, to show the way, daunting as that role can be. We cannot do this without our partners. We cannot do this without our partners. I invite you to join with us as colleagues to become relentlessly focused on helping our students achieve success in the broadest definition of what that means, to ensure a bright future for them, their families, their communities, our state, the nation, and the world. Thank you very much.